The labor market is a dynamic ecosystem where individuals supply their skills and abilities as labor, and employers demand these skills to produce goods and services. It encompasses various components such as employment, wages, job vacancies, and labor force participation rate. Factors such as technological advancement, economic conditions, government policies, and demographic trends influences these dynamics. Understanding the labor market involves analyzing labor supply and demand dynamics, wage determination mechanisms, unemployment rates, and the impact of labor market regulations. Overall, the labor market is a critical aspect of the economy, shaping individuals' livelihood, business operations, and overall economic performance. So, when we talk about labor market is the market that allocates the worker's job and coordinates employment decisions. Every society, regardless of its wealth, its form of government, or its structure of its economy, must make basic decisions. It must decide what and how much to produce, how to produce, and how output shall be distributed. These decisions requires finding out what consumers want, what technologies for the production are available, what are the skills and preferences the workers are, deciding to produce, where to produce, and coordinating all such decisions so that, for example, millions of people in India can each buy milk, bread, meat, etc. The process of coordination involves creating incentives so that the right amount of labor and capital will be employed at the right place at the right time. The production, employment, consumption decisions are all made and coordinated by price signals arising through the marketplaces. So, if you look at the size of this labor market, if you look at the statistics of Indian labor market, roughly 500 million people, more than that, are in the labor force. This is the data for 2017-18 PLFS data. And when we look at this distribution between male and female, roughly more than 380 million male and 114 million women are in labor force. When you can see the rural and urban distribution, and again this rural and urban distribution between male and female, so that you can have an idea that what is the size of the labor market and how it is distributed. So, thousands of decisions about their careers, choices, hiring, quitting, and compensation must be made and coordinated every day. If you look at the workforce participation data, you can see more than 470 million people at all India level, they are in the workforce, means they are employed. So, 500 plus million people are in labor force, and out of that 471 million people are in workforce. You can see the distribution between male and female again across rural and urban areas. You can see you can have the idea, the magnitude of labor market. And all these people, they take thousands of decisions in their day to day life about their career choices, hiring, quitting. When it comes to different types of labor markets, we talk about international labor market, national labor market, local labor market. Every market has buyers and sellers, and the labor market is no exception. The buyers are the employers and the sellers are the workers. Some of these participants may not be active at a given moment in the sense of seeking new employees or new jobs, but on a given day, thousands of the farms and workers will be in the market trying to transact. If, as in the case of doctors and mechanical engineers, buyers and sellers are searching throughout the entire nation for each other, we describe this market as the national labor market. If the buyers and sellers search only locally, as in the case of, let us say, data entry clerks or automobile mechanics, the labor market is a local one. When we speak on a particular labor market, let us say for the taxi drivers, we are using this term in a very loose reference. Let us say some companies are trying to hire people to drive their cabs and people seeking employment as cab drivers. The efforts of these buyers and sellers of the labor to transact and establish an employment relationship constitutes the market for the cab drivers. However, neither the employers nor the drivers are confined to this market. Both could simultaneously be in other markets as well. So, all these various labor markets that can be defined on the basis of industry, occupation, geography, certain transaction rules, job characters. So, these national, international and local markets may differ on these various characteristics. When it comes to labor market, let us try to understand certain concepts and definitions. First is the labor force. Labor force is the employable population, and we estimate the labor force participation just dividing the total labor force by the total population. Second concept is the workforce. They are employed ones. Labor force is the employable population, workforce is the employed labor force, those who are working. Unemployed is the difference between workforce and labor force. So, these unemployed, they are not working but seeking and or available for work. The ratio of those unemployed to those in the labor force is the unemployment rate. And there is another group, they are not in labor force. They are neither working nor available for work. So, they are outside the labor force. If you try to understand the structure of the labor market, then this can be understood through this diagram. The entire population, they can be labor force or they are not in labor force. And this labor force, some are employed and some are unemployed. So, it may happen that those who are in labor force at any day they can move to not in labor force, they can retire, they can come out of that labor force. Those who are not in labor force, let us say a student, he has completed his education, now he enter into the labor market. So, those who are not in labor force can enter into the labor force, those who are in labor force they can get out of the labor force. Again, those who are employed, at any point of time they can be unemployed, they can be fired by the firm, they can lose their job and become unemployed. And those who are unemployed, they can enter into the labor market and they can be employed at any point of time. When they get a job, they are in search of job. So the labor market is very complex and is very dynamic. If you look at this structure, so it's very dynamic in nature. Certain concepts related to labor market we need to understand, like wages, earnings, compensation and income. These are different. When we measure, estimate them, they are different. The actions of buyers and sellers in the labor market serve both to allocate and set prices for various kinds of labor. From a social perspective, these prices act as signals or incentives in allocation process, a process that relies primarily on individual and voluntary decisions. From the worker's point of view, the price of the labor is important in determining income and hence the purchasing power of the labor. Both wages and earnings are normally defined as measured in terms of direct monetary payments to the employees before taxes. Wage rates is the price of labor per working hour, and these wage rates can be of nominal or real. When we say nominal wage rate is what workers get paid per hour in current prices. Nominal wages are most useful in comparing the pay of various workers at a given point of time. Real wages are when the nominal wages are divided by some measures of prices, inflation, consumer price index or wholesale price index. It suggests that how much can be purchased with workers' nominal wage. When it comes to total compensation on the other hand consists of earnings plus employees' benefits. Benefits that are either payments in kind or deferred. When we say payment in kind, for example, when the employer provide health care, health insurance, where the employee receives a service or an insurance policy rather than money. When employer gives paid vacation in categories, let's say some days with payment instead of cash. Some are deferred payments. When we say total compensation takes into consideration kind and deferred payments. Deferred payments can be taken in the form of employer finance retired benefits, including social security taxes, for which the employer set aside money now that enables their employees to receive pension later. When it comes to income, the total command over resources of a person or family during some period of time is called income. It includes earnings, benefits and unearned income. So, income includes dividends or interest rates received on investment and transfer payments received from the government in form of welfare payments, unemployment compensation, so on. So, now with this let us try to understand how this labor market works. The labor market is one where three markets in which firms must successfully operate if they are to survive. The other two are the capital market and the product market. The labor and capital markets are the major one in which farms' inputs are purchased. and the product market is the one in which output is sold. In reality, of course, a farm may deal in many different labor, capital or product markets simultaneously. So, the study of labor market begins and ends with the analysis of demand and supply of labor. So, let us try to understand how this labor market works. The consumer, they demand certain goods and services, and these goods and services has to supplied to the consumer. We have already discussed about it. This is the market called product market. Now, to produce these goods and services, let us assume that the farm requires only two factors of production. So, here we are saying output is a function of labor and capital. So, the farm deals with capital and the farm deals with the labor in order to produce certain factor in that product. So, farm demands capital and this capital is supplied in a capital market. The farm, they demand labor and this labor is supplied in a labor market. So, you have the product market, the capital market and the labor market. The outcome of the product market is the price and the amount of goods and services which has been transacted. The outcome of the capital market is the interest rate and the amount of capital transacted. The outcome of labor market, the wage and the number of employment, the quantity of employment. So, to study the behavior of this labor market, the outcome of the labor market, we need to understand how the product market behaves and how the capital market behaves. So, the demand and supply of labor can be influenced by the demand and supply of goods and services here in the product market. Further, the demand and supply of capital also decides that what will be the amount of labor employed in the labor market, because the capital and labor, they are substitute to each other. So, we have to study the behavior of this capital market and the product market to understand its impact on labor demand and labor supply. You cannot study the labor market in isolation with the product market and capital market. On the demand side of the labor market are employers whose decisions about hiring of labor are influenced by conditions in all three markets: labor market, capital market and product market. On the supply side of the labor market are the workers and the potential workers whose decisions about where and whether to work must take into account their other options for how to spend their time. So, from the supply side, we need to understand the income leisure trade off, how they are going to spend their time. The major labor market outcomes are related to, as I have discussed, the terms of employment like wages, compensation levels, working conditions, and the levels of employment. In analyzing both these outcomes, one must usually differentiate among the various occupational, skill, or demographic groups that make up the overall labor market. Any labor market outcome is always affected to one degree or another by the forces of both demand and supply. So, to summarize that how the labor market works, the total output, the way in which they combine labor and capital depends on three forces. From the product market, it is the product demand. From the labor market, the amount of labor and capital they can acquire at given prices, and the choice of technologies that are available to them. We are interested in finding how the number of workers employed by a farm or set of farms is affected by changes in one or more of these three factors, like product demand, demand for labor, or demand for capital. So, we have to take into consideration all these three forces when we are trying to understand the dynamics of labor market. In the next lecture, I will present the basic outlines and the broadest implication of the simplest economic model of labor market. Thank you.